Most members of the Demon Slaying Corp tend to have some sort of connection to a demon in their past that caused them to join the Corps to begin with, be it a death or turning of a close family member, or to be wrongfully blamed for the actions of a demon. This all rings true for most of the pillars as well, though among their ranks there is one man in particular who could be considered the most scarred by a demon's actions, this being the sorrowful, sadistic, slit-mouthed serpent swordsman, Obanai Iguro, the Serpent Pillar of the Demon Slaying Corp. This video contains full series spoilers for Kimetsu no Yaiba, so if you want to avoid being spoiled and you haven't caught up, you have been warned. Obanai Iguro is a major supporting character in the story of Kimetsu no Yaiba, fulfilling the role of the Serpent Pillar in the Demon Slaying Corp, and is one of the more openly anti-social members of the group. Seen not only in his active hatred of the main cast, more specifically Tanjiro and Nezuko, but also in his unrealistic standards for demon slayers, expecting them to throw their lives away and refusing to accept someone's retirement. Though this is only because he is holding them to his own standards, which he forged from years of self-loathing thanks to his own bloodline and their history with demons. Though before we get too deep into that, let's understand the meaning behind his name and design. Obanai Iguro is one of the more complex names in the entirety of Kimetsu no Yaiba, with the name itself being tied to aspects of his history and his overall design. Starting first with his family name, Iguro, which is comprised of the characters for this and black or dark. But when you place them together, it can be read as luxurious or elegant dark, and this relates to the history of the Iguro clan, as they were able to reach elegance or luxury through dark means, this being a blood pact with a snake demon, where they would offer up their newborn children to the demon in exchange for it protecting their clan and gifting them valuables stolen from the people that it would slay on its hunts. Because of this, Iguro considered his bloodline to be tainted and cursed. Though, along with this, Igoro's name is also an anagram for gori, which is grotesque or gross in Japanese, which, while also accurately describing his family history, also relates to his physical appearance, as Igoro's family was ordered to scar his face to please the same demon who took a special interest in him thanks to his own heterochromia. This resulted in two large grotesque scars on both sides of his mouth, to make him look more snake-like, and these scars play with that gory aspect of his name, as he now considers himself defiled both physically and spiritually. And he tries to hide his shame with face bandages that he refuses to remove under most circumstances. This aspect of Igoro's character design seems to be in reference to the yokai, the Kuchisaki Onna, or split-mouthed woman, which is a spirit that would haunt the streets of Japan and ask people if she looked beautiful. If they said yes, she would reveal her grotesque face scars and ask again. If you said no to her at all, she would just kill you, and if you agreed with her at all times, she would scar you in a similar way. Though there is one telling of her origin, where she was just a beautiful woman who was violently assaulted by a bunch of other jealous women, which in return turned her into a vengeful spirit, and that telling of the story fits best with Igoro's own backstory. Then we have his given name, Obanai, which is the strangest name so far in Kimetsu no Yaiba, as it is comprised of the characters for small, plant, and inside, with the reading of plant also being banana. Though, actually if we look into the ba kanji used in his name, we learn that the symbol itself was created based on the image of a snake hiding within tall grass. So, in a way, the name works with his snake motif, as it implies that he always had a snake within him, which not only works for his cursed bloodline, but also the creation of his slaying style, the Breath of the Serpent. Breath of the Serpent is a demon slaying style based on the Breath of Water formula and focuses mostly on the wave-like motion, and it is a reference to how snakes have a strong affinity towards water. The style is a unique creation of Igoro's own due to his small stature and allows him to keep up with the other pillars. This breathing style will also result in the user's Nichiren changing into a lightish purple shade, and speaking of his Nichiren, Igoro actually has a rather unique one. It's not the standard katana, but instead a coiled longsword based on the Indonesian kris, a dagger that has evolved into a somewhat cultural symbol of the country, and is used mostly in part with the Indonesian martial art known as Pencak Silat, which I probably mispronounced, which is a martial art that utilizes the whole body for performing a number of grapples, strikes, and weapon-based attacks. And while the design was chosen to match with Igoro's snake-like themes, it also appears that he does have some knowledge of the martial art, or something similar to it, as we see in his interaction with Tanjiro where he placed him into a debilitating grapple. Though he doesn't appear to attempt this on any demons, and this is likely due to his own weaker physical stature. status. Along with this, Igoro's own Nichiren has its own personalized handguard, which depicts two snakes slithering around in the grass, which is seemingly in reference to his own name, though his sword grip also plays into his handguard, as it is a spiral of two different colored fabrics wrapped around each other, sort of like the Staff of Hermes. Along with this, Gotoge detailed in an extra page that Igoro's sheath is different from a normal katana sheath. Instead, it is more of a breakaway case, created with powerful magnets. How he draws the blade out is pulling it out vertically instead of horizontally, like most sword sheaths. Though we've mostly only seen him fight using the katas of his slaying style, of which we only know 5 different forms of, all of which have names that hold some sort of meaning as well, so let's go through each, starting first with, of course, the first kata, Winding Snake Slash, where the user slithers their blade with a long winding slash that mimics the movement of a snake, and the visualization of this attack comes in the form of a massive white snake, which itself is likely a reference to the Japanese mythical beast, the Daija, or massive serpent, or more specifically, the Guchinawa, a white snake that acts as a messenger for the gods. Though this snake is actually a common symbol found through a lot of Igoro's attacks, so I'll discuss it more in detail later in the video. Then we have the second kata, Venom Fangs of the Narrow-Headed Snake, where Igoro uses his speed and stealth together in order to sneak behind his target and quickly behead them with a single one-handed slash. This attack seemingly takes inspiration from the stealthy tactics of snakes, or more specifically the Mamushi, a venomous viper famous in Japan for its natural camouflage and venom that is still terrifying to this day, even requiring a week stay at a hospital to cleanse yourself of it. Next we have the third kata, the Coiled Choke, which sees Igoro circle around his target and strike all of their open or weak spots with a single unrelenting slash, whose cutting pattern matches that of a snake's movement, seemingly in reference to how some snakes will coil around their prey, but it's also very similar in nature to the auspicious beast Genbu, the Black Tortoise, as not only does Igoro's name connect with the Black Tortoise, but Genbu is also represented as a turtle wrapped in the coiled grip of a massive serpent. Along with this, Genbu's origin matches very well with Igoro's own origin, as Genbu was manifested during a purification process where a prince was seeking divinity, so he cut open his stomach to purge out all of his impurities into the river. His intestines then became Genbu, a physical manifestation of their sin, though instead of destroying the beasts, the prince allowed them to serve him in order to cleanse them of their own sin, and this is a similar manner to how Igoro was motivated to become a demon slayer so that he can cleanse his bloodline of the sin that they got entangled with, all in the hopes of doing so would allow him to reincarnate into a purified body. From here we have the fourth kata, Twin-Headed Reptile, which is an attack that sees Igoro lunge forward and do a series of cross-shaped slashes. This attack is based on the rare but not completely unheard of genetic abnormality where a snake can be born with 2 fully functioning heads. And this matches up very well with Igoro's own rare genetic abnormality, this being his heterochromia, where he was born with 2 different iris colors, which is the reason why he was spared a quick death as a child, so it probably impacted his creation. Then finally we have the last form that we have seen so far, this being the fifth kata, Slithering Serpent, which is seemingly a combination of the first and third kata, which is designed to eliminate a large group of demons all at once, as Igoro will slash forward with the same unrelenting strength as the Coiled Choke, but mixed together with the slithering motions of the Winding Snake Slash. The name of the attack can also be translated to Massive or Long Serpent, which calls back to the white snake which appears in all of Igoro's attacks, this being the Guchinawa, a messenger for the goddess Benzeiten, the ruler of everything that flows, be it time, water, or even snakes, which also reinforces the connection between the breath of serpent and water. Symbols of snakes have been seen as a blessing from Benzeiten, be it statues, drawings, or even the Slayer mark that Igoro awakens to in his fight against Muzan, as it takes the form of a long purple snake that flows from his arm to his chest. This mark also boosts all of Igoro's natural abilities, allowing him to awaken a Crimson Nichiren blade, though interestingly enough, Igoro was actually able to force the blade to become red on his own, by gripping it with such intensity that it causes the blade to heat up, where most others achieved a red Nichiren by collision-based friction. This just goes to show how talented Igoro was on his own, though the most common symbol of Beizenten is the white snake, much like the Guchinawa, as they are considered to be good luck charms and will bring good fortune to those who take care of them, which explains why Igoro's closest friend is Kubaramaru, which is a small white snake he met as a child, and he has kept close to it ever since. Instead, Kubaramaru's name is likely in reference to the Kubaru-ya, a signal arrow created in the feudal era of Japan, which were arrows designed with a whistle tip that would alert enemies that a battle would be starting soon, though the noise is also said to be able to ward off evil spirits, so just carrying one around with you is said to protect you from them. These arrows could also be used to send out one's location and deliver messages. Kubaramaru was likely given this name because he's not only Igoro's lucky charm, but eventually during the final battle with Muzan, when Igoro is blinded, his snake becomes his eyes. Kubaramaru has always been there with Igoro since his childhood. He was the only one there to comfort him after his scarring, and together they worked to escape their family's prison by slowly whittling down a wooden bar with a stolen hairpin, and soon enough they were actually able to escape, though the snake demoness would hunt them down rather quickly, discovering Igoro's absence during her nightly checkups. And as punishment for his escape, the demoness slaughtered his whole family before hunting him down and was prepared to kill him. But before they could kill and eat him, the Flame Pillar arrived to cut down the serpent. This is likely Rengoku, given that Igoro isn't present during Rengoku's own side story, meaning that Rengoku predates Igoro in the Demon Slaying Corp, which also, in retrospect, makes Igoro's reaction to Rengoku's death hit all that more harder, because that's the man who saved him. Though along with saving Igoro, Rengoku was also able to save one of his cousins from the demon's rampage, and instead of embracing the scarred child, she lashed out, beating Igoro for running away and wrongly accusing him of being the one who got his family killed. And even though he knew his family's actions were wrong, and that he essentially was a toy for them to be played with until his death, the weight of his cousin's words really affected him. He felt as if there were always 50 hands ready to drag him down to hell if he ever began to slag. This is why Igoro is so aggressive in his training, and why he expects perfection from his trainees. And on the topic of this, Igoro's childhood abuse also led to a severe case of gynophobia, or the fear of women, as he was the only son in a family of all females that constantly abused him. This resulted in him either avoiding or straight up ignoring contact with women that would approach him, which, on top of his general antisocial behavior, leaves the impression that Igoro actually hates his fellow Slayers, but in reality, he likes almost all of his peers, even making a few friends with the likes of Sanemi and Izui, based on their own similar family histories, though the person he ended up growing the closest to was ironically the most feminine of them all, this being the love pillar, Mitsuri Kanroji. He claims that it was love at first sight. She approached him one day, and even though he knew she must have gone through the hellish training to get where she was, she never let it show. Along with this, she was so open and honest with him that it caused his heart rate to spike and even freaked out Kubarimaru, which actually ended up biting Igoro for the first time. Though what really left an impression on Igoro is how Mitsuri always treated him like anyone else. Soon enough, he would even find painful activities like eating inconsequential as long as he was with Mitsuri. He would even go out of his way to write letters, make her meals, and even gifted her iconic socks to help take attention away from her uniform. He even seemed to pick out the striped socks because it matched his own hori. Though no matter how deeply in love he was, Igoro never felt that he could be with Mitsuri due to his disformities, hoping that one day he would die and be reincarnated into a new body that could finally ask her out. And that idea actually matches up very well with a common symbolism found within snakes in Japanese mythos, where shedding their skin is seen as a symbolic reincarnation and rejuvenation of their soul, which is likely the positive twist he used to develop the breath of the serpent. His feelings for Mitsuri is also very similar to a famous giant serpent story of Anuma Lake, which speaks of a powerful snake spirit which would take the form of a beautiful man to view the cherry blossoms each year, and one day he met a beautiful woman named Korohime. The snake fell madly in love with her at first sight and was willing to throw his carefree lifestyle away as a god in order to marry her, though the father forbid it due to his inhuman status, resulting in the snake becoming more and more spiteful. And while this story ends in tragedy, Igoro's actually ends in a rather positive turn of events, as by the end of his life, Igoro was successful in the process of cleansing his bloodline, being a major player in the defeat of Muzan and even sacrificing himself to take a final blow meant for Tanjiro. In his broken state, he would hold Mitsuri in his arms, the two of them finally able to speak on their feelings for each other that they've been holding onto for so long. And after confessing to each other with with their final breaths, the two hope to meet each other when they are reincarnated. And though it would seem like a tragedy that two lovers would only find out about each other moments before death, they would be granted their wish in the world without demons, as the two were reborn and able to find each other yet again, I imagine at a cherry blossom festival, and now they manage a restaurant together with a snake ascetic and massive portions. Just be careful not to let your eyes wander too much, or you may have to dodge a knife. Iguro might be the most slow burn character in all of Demon Slayers, and it's fair to say that you might not fully appreciate his character until you complete the series, or at least reread it once, and this is partly due to his limited screen time, but I do feel like Gatoge was able to successfully execute what they wanted with the character by the end of the series. They blend together the right amount of tragedy and backstory that doesn't feel like it's reiterating on any of the other characters' own backstory, while being unique enough to really leave that gut punch. He's also a great character, and I would love to see him get a Gaiden-like story, so that we can not only see more screen time for him, but maybe we'll actually be able to see more of his unused katas from his own original slaying style. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/ManyNotTheBadGuy. And if you want to see a different type of slithering serpent, you can do so by buying a copy of Shimonetta, A Boring World Where the Concept of Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist at buyshimonetta.com.